Welcome back to another episode of the Meet Kevin Show. In today's video, we are talking, as expected, Tesla, SpaceX, AT&T. We could touch on the Fed a little bit. Jim Jordan loses even harder. We'll talk Israel, World War III, Trump. Someone pled guilty. We'll talk IRS. Oh, no. Maybe if we have time, we'll get to some real estate, which we're about to go fly to some real estate after we get through the pod. But the pod must go on. So, first thing, boy, oh boy, Elon Musk blocked me on Twitter. Elon Musk apparently doesn't like criticism, which is ironic given that he's all for free speech. Now, to be fair, free speech doesn't mean anybody else has to listen, but it is a little ironic, especially since he was talking about getting rid of the block feature, because why would you have to block somebody? No need to block someone. The block feature didn't get removed. Instead, Elon's happy to use it. Kind of ironic, though, because in the past, he has argued that he wants to hear what his critics are saying so he can adjust and he can learn. Now it seems to be maybe there's too much going on in his life. What do you guys think? I mean, I hear now there's a custody battle for X, the third secret child with Grimes as well. I think that one's named Tao. He's basically flipping off and stonewalling the EU, the SEC. We've gone through those on the pod here. What is going on in this guy's life? Is he just really stressed and therefore down in the dumps? Should somebody else be on these earnings calls? You know, what's going on here? Is he capable of doing all of this stuff?
100% someone else should be on those earnings calls. I think it was one of those things that Steve Jobs started, is like the CEO kind of in front and let me tell you about the new product, great keynotes, and everyone else is like, hey, I can do that too. And no, they can't, especially not someone like Elon Musk. No, he can't. 100% we need somebody else.
Interesting. So you actually look at Steve Jobs and say, hey, he was great at sort of walking out on the stage. Let me introduce the vision of the new product. But people think of Steve Jobs as a visionary. And so they see, oh, here comes Steve Jobs. What's the one more thing? What's the great thing? Which I really think could be the hype of the Cybertruck, right? I mean, you're now building a car from the outside in. The frame of the car is on the outside. You've got the axle, and the frame of the car is on the outside. Whereas with a traditional car, you have the axle, then a frame, and then the costume on the outside, the decorative piece. This is a completely different way to build. This is such an innovative product, and I actually think it's going to do exceptionally well. I will stay invested in Tesla because of the Cybertruck and Optimus and the people that work at Tesla. But boy, in terms of having a cheerleader, I don't know. Is this like, is it good to have somebody who's conservative, or is it like, yes, but get them off the earnings call?
So to piggyback off what Mikey said, I think this is going to tie in your question with something you said about Steve Jobs. So when Steve Jobs passed away in October of 2011, he got Apple to $350 billion valuation, okay? Tim Cook
what? What did he take?
Tim took Steve Jobs' job, and he got Apple to a $2 trillion company. Mm-hmm. My question is Elon Elon has gotten Tesla to an $800 to $1 trillion company.
Minus about 15% the last 2 days.
Yikes. Is Elon the person to get Tesla to a $2 trillion company? Now, I don't say that in spite of Elon Musk. I say that because he has done so much for Tesla, but there are different skill sets. Like Apple would not be here if it weren't for Steve Jobs. However, Tim Cook carried Steve Jobs' vision all over. And I just don't know if that scale, Elon loves engineering, he loves the product too much. We need somebody that's focused on scale. Like that is their number one.
And publicity. I mean, could you imagine if Tim Cook took over Apple and then went on Twitter and started complaining about woke politics and how Democrats suck and, California sucks or Newsom sucks, whatever, right? Could you imagine if Apple did that? I mean, we would. My guess is there would at least be 20, 30% of people who are like, that's it. Look, I like iPhone, but I'm not willing to support this. Well, weren't we talking about this? Who was talking about it with me yesterday? Somebody's like, it was Lauren. Last night, I'm driving with Lauren in the Tesla, and we're parking it, and I'm like, it used to be something cool. You could be like, oh, you got a Tesla, and people cared it, and she's cared about that. Now Lauren's like, I'm looking sometimes at people on Facebook, people that I know or whatever. Some of them are liberal, some of them Republican, whatever. She goes, here's some liberals, and they drive Teslas from before Elon bought Twitter, and they now have bumper stickers on their car that say, owned since prior to Tesla's Twitter takeover, or something to that effect. Basically, like don't judge me. I know Elon's a nut job, but I bought the car before, and like now it's kind of like, oh, okay, well you're good then, because who the hell would buy a Tesla from that nut job? What am I missing here?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, if you look at the CEO or the history of any of these cars, all of them are cancelable. Like every car manufacturer is cancelable.
Yeah.
Hitler drove a very nice custom Mercedes that Mercedes built for him. He founded Volkswagen. Ford has a really shady history there too. Like everyone is cancelable. So Elon Musk, it's one of those things I personally like to leave that out when I make my decisions.
Yep.
My family, they got a Tesla Model Y recently too. They're not fans of Elon's politics, but at the end of the day, it's like, what's going to make the most sense for our pockets and our lifestyle. So I think there's a lot of people who still put that logic forward. They're not the very vocal people, but I think there's a lot of people who are still buying it for their own benefit.
Do you think that there's a way Tesla could advertise and target people like your parents who are like, look, even with where rates are today or whatever, savings, this, that, whatever, we can afford a Tesla, but we need to know the benefits of a Tesla. Now, you're obviously a Tesla enthusiast, so you could tell them that. But if they didn't have you, would they buy a Tesla? How would they know about all the benefits of a Tesla?
Most likely not. And even still, there's so much disinformation I'll hear from my friends. Like, yeah, but when you're going on road trips, you got to charge it for like 8 hours. It's like, and on what planet is it taking 8 hours on a? It's like a 20-minute break tops. Like
people just don't know.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's so frustrating. I actually saw a comment on Twitter because I read them. I just don't let them affect me anymore. But this person left a comment on Twitter like, well, I mean, Kevin, Elon addressed your advertising complaint and said that, well, what's the point of advertising to people we can't afford to, or who can't afford the cars anyway because rates are so high? And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is advertising 101. Advertise to the people who can afford it. It's not that hard. You can locate zip codes that have a higher per capita income. You could advertise to employees at firms that are going to have a high enough income. We know we have all this data, even with UID from Trade Desk. It all exists. Okay, we can advertise to education. We can advertise to age. We can advertise. Really, there's no shortage of how we can target advertising. But the point is saying, one person going, hey, well, Elon says ads, advertising to somebody who can't afford it doesn't work. Is that an excuse, or what's Elon doing here? Like, but then don't advertise to those people. Advertise to different people. What am I missing there?
He's just kind of saying crap, man. Like,
do you think he just goes in these calls and YOLOs it?
I feel like it because yesterday I don't think him crying was scripted.
And if it was bad acting.
Yeah. I slept on the floor because I had to, not because I wanted to.
Oh.
Yeah, there's so much. I mean, still I'll get comments like, well, Tesla's great and all, but like I'm not some rich elitist, like I can't afford it. It's like these are cheaper than most cars that are getting sold in the US.
Yeah, and is it not a slap in the face to all of your Cybertruck employees or your blue-collar manufacturing employees where you're trying to make a point that, the work from homers or Marie Antoinette, let them eat cake. You're trying to make that point. But on the other hand, you're saying, yeah, we made a new innovative product, and boy, we dug our own grave on that one. Isn't that a slap in the face?
That was a horrible way for him to
Super
work
discouraging. Like, if you're an employee, it's like, all right, like, let's go. How many can we get out by the end of the year? Elon's like, yeah, we're kind of screwed for a little while. It's just like there's a leadership question that needs to be addressed. And you talked about that at length this morning. It's you want somebody that leads from the front that's like pushing you and helping you up. But Elon kind of drug everybody down on that call. He wanted people to empathize with him. Like, I slept on the factory. It's like, Elon, you did great. Like, you are awesome.
Yeah.
But we need you to look forward. Stop looking back.
We need the old Elon back. We need the Elon of pre-Twitter back. That's what's missing. Elon's done fantastic things.
But do we? Well, do we need somebody that actually just wants to make this
either way? It depends, because maybe you can't get old Elon back, and then you need somebody different, right? But I mean, if you look at what Elon did during those times of 08, 09, he's sleeping on the floor. Go back to that if that's what it's going to take. Go to Mexico and negotiate with the Mexican government and get a better deal for the Mexican Gigafactory. But don't go on Twitter or an earnings call and bitch about how hard things are. Lead, because the old Elon would have gone back to the factory floor and actually gone through the work to keep this company efficient, because people look at Elon, they're like, he's the one that can drive the cost efficiencies. The best part is no part. These are all like very Elon first principles thinkings, which are so great. That's what made Elon great. Yet now Elon's trying to be great with like this God complex of, well, I can also make Twitter great, and I can also make politics great, and I can also...
I did the best holes.
Yeah, like what the hell?
What was the thing you said he did with Twitter and X and YouTube on the live stream yesterday on the earnings call?
Yeah, you have this.
I fact-checked this because Kevin, on his live stream yesterday, which I watched, that was an awesome earnings call. The way you handled it was awesome. Your commentary was great. So I was watching that, and he had issues with the audio at the beginning on the YouTube one, right? And you switched over switched over to X, and that worked just fine. And so he's like, hey, can you look into that? Like, what was the issue? And so the first 2 minutes, I listened to it today, the first 2 minutes on YouTube, no audio at all. So I don't know if they were just having audio issues, right? I mean, we have audio issues sometimes too, it happens. Yeah. Or if it was an incentive for a lot of people to be like, hey, this isn't working. Let me try viewing it on X. Oh, this works.
Yeah, exactly. So to reiterate that, on Tesla.com, on the investor relations page, you can click listen to earnings call. And what they do is they link to the YouTube video. And then on YouTube, on the Tesla YouTube channel, they have the video. And it's like, live. And they do a countdown coming soon. Well, I had that tab open, and I always have a backup open. I got CNBC open, I had Twitter open. I had all of the sources I could get my hands on open. And the music stopped on on YouTube. And I didn't hear the call. I'm like, this is weird. When the music stops, the call starts. I had silence. And I'm like, that's weird. Quickly tab over to Twitter. It's playing just fine. Elon's in the middle of talking. I'm like, oh, that's odd. And then we got to thinking about it. Wait, is this Elon purposefully trying to manipulate, implying that Tesla's having tech problems at YouTube because YouTube's got problems and Twitter's great and it's working over there?
So here's my question. If Elon loves the product so much, he made...
Twitter, you mean? Or what product?
No, if Elon loved, like, there's the product, like he wants to be the chief product engineer at Twitter, but he hired a CEO.
Yeah.
He wants to focus on the mechanics of the rocket, but not the company of SpaceX.
Yeah.
He hired a CEO for all of these separate companies, Boring Company, Neuralink, all have different CEOs. Why hasn't he, I don't want to even say step down, but why hasn't he shifted his focus to the product and let a CEO, a corporate CEO, like the CEO at X, she's doing a fantastic job. She goes out there, spreads great publicity, goes to these marketing events.
She's tweeting. Imagine that, the CEO tweeting.
She puts a great face on. Why doesn't Elon have somebody do that for Tesla?
Right. So to finish the point on the video thing, I think there's a risk or potential that Elon maybe have been a little shystery there in wanting to make Twitter look better, right? I mean, that's kind of what we're thinking there. But maybe not. Maybe it was just an accident, eh? And so can that be cleared up by then, to your point, is it time to just get Elon out of some of these areas where he's making these rash and emotional decisions? Can we get a CEO in place who isn't emotional? I think that's what you need. You need a business leader. You need somebody who says and acknowledges what the pain is, talks about the difficult path forward, but also guides you through that difficult path. It's like, look, we are going to go through hell, which he said. He said the next year is going to be hard. That was great leadership. He said that at the investor day or whatever it was, the shareholder meeting. That's what it was. The next year is going to be difficult. Okay, great. So what are you going to do about it? Well, I'm going to go on X and play Diablo. That's probably not what we need right now. What we need is, I'm in Mexico. I'm making sure the front lines are being built. I'm at the Cybertruck facility. Here's me on Instagram live streaming or on TikTok or Twitter rather. Twitter live stream. Look what we're doing with the Cybertruck. Look how we're trying to save money here. That's what people want to see. They don't want to see the ranting. And so you're right. Maybe it's time for a different CEO. Sometimes people are like, oh, if Elon leaves, it's all going to fall apart.
What happens when Elon stays?
That's the thing. I used to think that. I used to think if Elon's gone, Tesla's got a problem. Now I'm like, if Elon's gone, maybe a distraction's gone. I don't know this, but it's my opinion that one of the reasons the CFO left, Zach, who was great, is that he's factual. He's rigid. He's like, here's the data, man. We got to be real about this. We got to come up with a plan. And Elon's POV is, let's just bitch about JPOW. I think Zach's like, I need latitude here to run this company. And Elon's like, nah, I'm going to go bitch about JPOW. And so what do you get? Well, you get an emotional earnings call like that. The earnings did not tank Tesla. The earnings were fine. In fact, Tesla was up as much as 2% after the earnings, because it's like, I remember reading the earnings and I'm like, oh, wow, these are actually not that bad. I thought free cash flow would go negative. It's positive. The margin after tax credits was still 16.3%. Nobody touches that, even in the legacy autos. They're killing it. They were killing it, the numbers. And the stock was up. It was just Elon's nonsense that made people think, what the hell just happened to Tesla?
And some of the data, the way he presented it, Cybertruck, okay, the next 12 to 18 months, maybe even longer, not going to be profitable. That was the same case for all of their cars. None of them are profitable.
That's normal.
Scaling as hell, like he's mentioned it multiple times. We all know that. So say, hey, look, here's the history. This is with every one of these cars. Cybertruck is so revolutionary. This is going to take us a while, but after a couple of years, this will be the most profitable product Tesla has ever made. Instead, he said, we dug ourselves a grave. That is the worst thing I want to hear as an investor.
Some people are like, he is purposefully trying to drag the stock in the mud so like the true fans can go buy more. And I'm like, no, no, like you don't do that, because what you're doing is you're literally telling every one of your supporters, I hate you. You're telling all of your senior management, I hate you.
I don't believe in you.
Yeah, I don't believe in you. And you're telling your line workers, don't bother caring about that stock comp you're getting because it's going to be worthless anyway. That's like, and that's a great line there. I don't believe in you. That's the scariest. Because if a leader doesn't believe in the people working with them, you're screwed. The company falls apart. You got to believe in the joint vision. And if Elon doesn't even believe in it, I don't know. I mean, maybe he does long term, right? He says he does long term, but it didn't come across that way.
It's a little odd because he normally speaks of Giga Shanghai's like, man, these guys are burning the 3 a.m. oil. And he speaks so highly of work ethic.
True.
Whereas now he's like, you can pretty much tell he's talking about Giga Austin. And he's like, we dug ourselves a hole. And he's like, there was no belief. He's like, we dug ourselves a hole, but I know that our team at Tesla will take care of business. Like, that's a big difference. He could have used the same principles of what he wanted to say, but framed it completely differently.
Yep. I don't think he prepares. That's the thing. I think he thinks, okay, it's another earnings call. I'm just going to go in there. I'm just going to say, you know, what I think, whatever, and I'm not going to have any prep. And so as a result, he says stupid stuff that doesn't come across right. And, you know, the community tries to understand that and break that apart. But unfortunately, the problem is, unless you're like super all in, you know, roll out the rubber mat for Elon, you don't get responses from Elon, or worse, you get blocked.
Which, by the way, lol. So the blocking thing, it is kind of funny. It's ironic. I'm against blocking someone who's giving you criticism. If someone's harassing you constantly, sure, you can block them. I also don't necessarily think it's anti-free speech. I think blocking someone is a type of free speech.
Yeah. You that's true. You can express your right not to listen to somebody. Yeah.
But
and I could still tweet. It's not like I'm banned from the platform. It just seems petty for Mr. You know, for Mr. Elon, who's like, oh, I like criticism and I like the perspective, to go, nah, JK, I don't. And I get it. Maybe he's having a hard time in his life right now, but then put someone else in charge.
I do not envy him at all.
Yeah. Well, what he's got going on, you mean it's just too much. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't envy his, like, he probably has very little life. Like, he's just all, Elon, I need you here. I need you here. I need you here.
I can't. I'm on Diablo right now.
You're the CEO. You're the CEO of multiple businesses.
But you make that choice yourself. You make that choice. And if you're starting to suck at something, then it's your job to put someone else in that role and to lead. That's not what he's doing, though.
Yeah.
So it's like, people are like, oh, well, you know, the SEC's after him. Well, because he's being a dumbass. Because he's telling the SEC, I'll meet you on the 14th, and then 2 days before, JK, I don't want to. And well, we'll meet you at a different office. No thanks. Like, he's purposefully aggravating things. You think he would try to make it simpler. He's acting like a Trump. You know, and this is not to be like pro or anti-Trump. Trump is a politician. The more he rocks the boat, the more donations he gets from his party. The problem is, the more Elon acts like a politician and rocks the boat, the less sales he gets from half of America.
Yeah, and I want to point out, too, that for the most part, you know, more left-wing people are into the EVs right now than right-wing.
Yeah.
But more right-wing people like Elon politics more, but they're not the ones giving the money to Elon they're the ones donating to the Trump campaign, basically. So you're just shooting yourself in the foot here.
You really
just
are.
Shut up.
And to make it clear, I personally believe Elon is the entrepreneur of my life, like of my lifetime.
Yeah.
But I think there may be a time when Elon's like, I love the product too much. I don't care about the corporate bullcrap. Get me away from this. Let Zach Kirkhorn go on the earnings call and give some optimism when I don't feel when there is any. Like, come on, Elon. Like, let's get the right it's your job, like you said, Kevin, to get the right person in place.
Yep.
So Tesla earnings didn't result in a very good market for them today. Netflix, though, absolutely killed it today.
Yeah, so Netflix, I thought this password sharing stuff, like you had said, McKay, wasn't going to do too well for Netflix, like cutting that off. And I thought that might wake up some sleepy subscriptions where you're like, oh, I forgot I had an extra Netflix subscription. Let me cancel that. Apparently not. I mean, they killed it here. What do you guys think?
Yeah. From personal experience, just the other week, my mom called me and she was like, hey, Netflix stopped working, right? I mean, she uses my account. And I was like, all right, let me go check it out. And sure enough, yes, different household, no longer letting her use it. So I was like, all right, let me see what alternatives I have here. Opening up Netflix. Well, they make it really easy to add additional people out of your house to your account now. It's not the full cost of making a whole new account from scratch. I could still have her on the premium, the fewer commercials, high definition, all that. And so, I mean, to me, as long as there's an easy alternative, I don't care. It's the same as like how Spotify made
How much more was it?
Oof, I don't remember the number. I want to say it was like
A few bucks or something like that a month?
It was more than a few bucks, but
Okay.
because I'm paying for like a higher tier, I'm paying something like $20 a month for Netflix. To add her, it was like $8 a month, something like that.
Oh,
You
okay.
have to double check the numbers.
Yeah,
but
yeah. Okay, so they're making it easy though for you to transition. See, and it's smart. You know, they're like, hey, here's a company that's saying, what can we do? Not to piss off half of our customers, but what can we do to just be reasonable? Like, hey, look, we're creating this content. You know, password sharing's, you're not really supposed to do it. Like, I don't think. I mean, let me ask you: Do you think Netflix is unreasonable for taking away your right to share your password?
No, I mean, I know it's trendy to hate them for it, and I might get some flack for this too. Same way that YouTube right now is cracking down on the ad blockers, and a lot of people are angry about that. And it's like, look, at the end of the day, like, you're paying for someone else's work. I think of Spotify for this is back in the day, everyone was on LimeWire, Kazaa,
illegal
Napster,
download.
illegal downloads, and we would torrent all of our music. And the only reason is because there wasn't an easy, inexpensive alternative. And Spotify came out, it's like, hey, pay us $10 or $15, whatever it is, and listen to all the music you want. Well, that's easier. Like, I'm happy to pay the 10 or 15 bucks for Spotify. It's just easier for me.
Yeah. I mean, that's true. I think it's sort of like, all right, it's a transition, but then you're like, you know what? At the end of the day, an extra $8 a month, it's worth it. Netflix did a good move here, and I don't know that that upsetness will last as long as like the hatred and Elon has caused in some people.
It was going to talking about subscription services. It was interesting trying to see Elon defend like lowering the price on FSD. Because the analysts are like, you said that FSD was going to get better and you were going to increase the price over time. What's up with decreasing the price?
We just want more people to be able to try it out.
He couldn't
How
give it,
kind of him.
He couldn't, like, there's probably, maybe you can think of a better way, but how could you give like an optimistic outlook for dropping the price when you said it should be getting better, therefore it'll get more expensive, but then a couple months later you drop the price and it's like, so is things getting better? And he's like, we love FSD. We all use FSD and drive it a lot, so it's hard.
It's a great product. It's just hard to justify an extra $12,000. So for a lot of people, I think a good strategy is get a used Tesla. You did that, and we think the used. What were we calculating? The used resale value of FSD is adding maybe what $3,000 to the cost of car, if that.
If that.
So in other words, you get a used Tesla, you're basically getting a wedge deal on FSD because you're getting $12,000 of list price for $3,000.
Yeah.
25% of the price.
Yeah, it does fantastic too.
That's so. I mean, that's great. Well, I was gonna say, maybe you could do that with a used Cybertruck, which is probably honestly what I'll end up having to do because I doubt they're gonna let me get a Cybertruck at any point close to where my reservation is because they probably just hate my guts.
I think Elon could have said like, hey, as soon as interest rates lower, then we can increase the price again. But like
exactly.
The demand lever, like this is just a demand lever. Like it's just natural.
You just do a formula. Look, every 50 basis points, $1,500. Simple. And then you could tell all the analysts, look, as soon as rates come down 50 basis points, we'll increase the price $1,500. And now it's also very transparent to the audience. They don't feel like they're getting a lesser product. It's simply a formula of what interest rates are. Now you have a leader who has a vision, who says, here's our formula. We're going to be transparent about it. Maybe we might have to modify the formula a little bit, but consider this. Interest rates went up about 50 basis points. That's about 5%, right? Times $1,500 is about $15,000. That's roughly how much Tesla prices have come down from their peak. Now, obviously, I'm going with average vehicle price here since we have different models of vehicles. But now you have a transparent formula. And what do you say to the Tesla shareholders? You're not going, everything sucks. Instead, you're going, look, interest rates just went up another 50 basis points, not from the Fed, but from the market. 10-year Treasury went up another 50 basis points. That means October is already starting out slower than where we were before. That means we're probably going to have to cut prices again, $1,500. And guess what? If they go up another 50 basis points, guess what's going to happen? It's not a surprise. It's not a shock to Tesla investors or buyers. Now, if you're a buyer, you go buy a Tesla and you're like, all right, I think interest rates could go up another 1%. Okay, well, worst case, then the prices will go down $3,000.
And I think this is where we really missed Zach because he could have been like, yeah, we did have to drop the FSD price due to interest rates, but take rate also went up 15%. We're introducing people that much more.
That would have been wonderful.
Like that single stat turns it in, and you're third partying the Fed. What I mean by that is you're not making yourself the bad guy. You're like, hey, the Fed is forcing our hand on this. We don't want to do this. We know we promised, we did not expect this. So as soon as the Fed lowers rates, we can increase the price back up again. But until the Fed does something, that way, because Elon just absorbed it all and turned himself into a bad guy because he couldn't give a transparent reason why. Yep. He just said, we want more people to try it. Like he could have formed that way better. And I think you're right. He just gets off his jet. Somebody hands him a paper like, all right, here are the bullet points we're going to talk about.
There's no preparation, which I get it. He's got a lot going on, but then you're not fit to be the CEO.
Yeah. This was Zach's job. He was a numbers guy. He had to do was come in like, 15% higher take rate.
The interim CFO, I can't understand half of what he's saying. I'm sorry, but if you're going to be on an earnings call, you should be capable of having a very, very clear discussion of financial results. You don't need executives on the call. You need people who are able to answer questions and provide data. That's it.
That's for the same reason Elon shouldn't be there. He can't really articulate any of his points well. Like I'm sure his brain works just fine, but when it comes out of his mouth, like I can't understand what he's
trying to say.
Put him
at AI Day, where all the engineers can get
all
bonus.
The nerds,
yep. And I'm into this. Like I like all the AI. I like really big AI PP. Like big pricing power from AI, but not on the earnings call. It's ridiculous. So anyway, okay, what's next?
Yeah. So to address a couple comments that we actually got on the last pod. First one is, can you guys go one day without talking about Tesla? No. Next question. So this is a follow-up for the SpaceX one when we were talking about the direct to sell, and somebody had pointed out like, hey, you should mention part of the reason why AT&T is fighting this so hard is they have a partnership with AST Space Mobile, and they've actually tested out this direct to sell technology. So I kind of went down the rabbit hole and did some research on it. They have already completed all their testing for direct to sell, I think back in 2021, and they're planning on launching by 2024. So this commentator stated that SpaceX is panicking because they haven't tested it yet, and that's why they needed to get the special permission to bypass all these rules and do the testing. And I'll quote part of the response here.
So just to clarify really quick,
Yes.
AT&T is trying to slow down SpaceX because SpaceX needs to do their testing, which AT&T has already done. So SpaceX is catching up to AT&T. But the interesting thing about this is a lot of people probably don't know that AT&T has already partnered with AST Space Mobile. I've never heard of that, by the way. So this is a way to get cell service directly from a satellite, which to some extent Apple's doing with like the SOS feature or whatever, but I think that's more for emergency calling and stuff like that. This would be more like, hey, your in the future primary provider could be a satellite.
It's a backup. Like if we're going on a road trip and we're going through rural parts of town where there's not good cell service, satellite picks it up and there's your backup instead, and you got the perfect bars basically.
That would be very nice.
It'd be very great.
That'd be great. Okay, good. So so now there's a quote coming from AT&T. You're saying?
No, this is a quote from the commentator.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. Yeah, let's hear it.
But this person said, I believe the reason for all this hoopla after offering the service is because they're trying to scare AST's investors and thereby suppress their stock price and make it harder for the company to raise money via dilution. Elon has a history of vastly underestimating his timelines, and I suspect he is bluffing about being ready with direct-to-cell texting in 2024, and even more so with voice and data in 2025. AST Space Mobile has already got agreements with a very large number of top cell service companies around the world, and SpaceX is on its way to being second to market in a business that being first has huge advantage.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, you're the first mover in that space. That's like AT&T getting the iPhone contract. That switched so many people to AT&T.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, and I mean, their moat certainly was a few years long, but once you're in, and that's why all of these carriers are trying to do those massive, like, oh, trade in your phone, we'll give you $800 or $1,000 for your phone. Because once you're at a carrier, it's a pain in the butt to switch, because now you're switching numbers. Nobody wants to switch their numbers. Now you could port, but that's a pain in the butt. The vast majority of people don't know how to port it. Even if it was easy to port, you could run into some technical problems. I've ported my number from Google Voice to AT&T. It was a disaster. Now, mind you, that was 12 years ago, but I never want to go through that again. It
has gotten better.
It's glitchy.
I've gone from T-Mobile to Verizon. Now I'm on Google Fi. And I love Google Fi. Always kept my SIM number, no trouble with that.
And how hard was it to port? Maybe it's easier now.
They gave me my phone, and the SIM cards already work with my phone number. I don't have to do anything additional.
Really? Okay, well, maybe
deal
that's
with it on the back end now.
Yeah, that's what they told me too.
Oh no!
What happened back then is it was so weird. Certain landlines couldn't call me, so they would dial my number, and it would just not ring. It would just be empty, like there was nothing happening. And so I finally got to a level 3 or 4 tech support at AT&T after weeks of on the phone, because I was a real estate agent then. I'm a real estate broker still today, but I don't practice for myself anymore. But anyway, I'm like, I could be missing calls and leads. So what we found is various different towers across the country still hadn't gotten the memo that my number had been ported from Google Voice to AT&T. And they're like, this is something that over time will just refresh, and once it refreshes, it'll be cleared. Well, that took about 2 years before I stopped having problems. Oh.
That's
It's like a
probably
2-year cache. That's
probably
insane.
when landlines became obsolete as well, about 2 years.
Yeah. Probably I'll get rid of these phone lines. No kidding. That's true. Anyway, well, I'm glad to hear that's faster on porting. So if that's faster on porting, although, I mean, I guess maybe it's less of a moat than I'm thinking to switch carriers then. I mean, it's still a pain in the butt.
It's still a pain in the butt. It's gotten a little better over time, but it's still kind of a pain.
Like you got to change the new auto pay and pick your new plan and stuff. It's so much easier to just be like, all right, same thing, let's go.
And a lot of people are grandfathered in a pretty good plan, so as soon as you change, you're going with all the modern rates and new plans, and
Good point. Okay.
be a lot more expensive.
So where do we stand now with this? We're waiting for this, like some kind of response on this lawsuit in the courts, right?
Yeah, so with AST Space Mobile, they didn't have to do this kind of expedited method that SpaceX is doing. They filed a Form 442 with the FCC, which is just a way to test new technologies. It's not an expedited version, and this was back in 2021.
Oh, so they've been doing this for a while.
They've been, at least the partnership with AST.
SpaceX probably looked at it and was like, we can do that too.
That's my hunch. So I think they're trying to dip their toes into something like, oh, this is new, we can win this. And I mean, I'm not personally against them getting the expedited service if it is a help to people.
Sure.
No problem with it. I do think it's a little bit petty from AT&T, but I think it was just worth bringing up that, like, hey, like there is someone who's already doing this, and it's a partnership with
it is
AT&T.
very interesting because I would not have known about AST Space and Mobile had it not been for this Starlink thing and the SpaceX thing, right?
True.
So it's kind of like, oh, Elon's doing something. Oh, that's great. That's so innovative. Meanwhile, he's just copying somebody who did it 2 years ago. But he's so popular, you hear it first from Elon. It's like, oh God, Elon, yes. You know, and hey, good for Elon.
Agreed.
Master marketer.
Agreed.
Next.
All right. So
Just can't sell Tesla very well.
Oh, except for Tesla. Oh, get him out quick.
I was reading this thing in Bitcoin Magazine about Bitcoin in El Salvador, because remember that's kind of their national currency.
Yeah,
now.
they gave everybody like stimulus money, like $30 worth of Bitcoin, like via Bitcoin wallet.
Yep, and they're saying like that has been an absolute like godsend in stimulating the economy in the country, pushing new, like for tourism, for just new developments of stuff. And they're saying all the pros that we've been getting from Bitcoin have been vastly outweighing all the criticism we're getting around the world from it.
Wow.
Very interesting.
I mean, that makes sense that Bitcoin Mag would air that. But
Yeah.
if that is truly how the El Salvadorian government feels, then that is great because they've had quite a bit of price volatility too.
Yeah.
They bought the dip a lot at like 36 to 40, I believe, K, right? And so now we're, under 30. And it looks like the ETF approval might only bump this to like 30K, just because we've seen some soft, like, oh, it's approved. Oh, no, it's not. We go to 30 and drop right back down. But that's actually very good. I mean, I'm happy for El Salvador. And quite frankly, if I was a Bitcoin company or crypto company, I would want to be in an environment that was really supportive of crypto.
Mm-hmm.
So that seems to be either Miami, Puerto Rico, or El Salvador.
That's a gutsy decision by El Salvador. So props to them. It's like,
Well, they would have gone bankrupt otherwise.
Yeah, it's still more
Very
stable than their old
interesting.
currency.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
That's what's crazy is like these more third world countries
Yeah.
or more second, like in between, not necessarily first, but they're not terrible.
Now we call them developing countries.
Yes.
I guess
Right.
it's like offensive to call it their whatever.
Yeah,
Everybody gets so sensitive. We know what you mean.
I lived
though.
in South America for 2 years, and I thought it was going to be like huts and shacks, but it's not. It's a very populated civilization. Like it's normal. It's just not like you come back to the United States and you can tell differences, but it's not like people think like huts and safaris in Africa. South America is pretty developed.
Nice. Okay.
So our next topic, let's jump into U.S. politics a little bit. Jim Jordan lost again. He lost even harder this time, and so he kind of quit. So if you remember earlier this week, the Republicans or Congress was voting for their new speaker, and obviously the Dems were all like no, but he had 20 Republican votes against him. They redid the voting again yesterday. Total of 22 voted against him this time.
Oh, it's the wrong direction.
2 pivoted and voted for him that didn't before, but then he had 4 new people who voted against him.
Oh.
And so this is interesting. GOP Representative Don Bacon, he was one of the people who voted no for Jim Jordan.
All right.
And his wife shared this with CNN. I was reading this on CNN, that she received anonymous text messages. Actually, he received anonymous text messages regarding his vote. So the text said, and I quote, Your husband will not hold any political office ever again. What a disappointment and failure he is.
Oh.
And her response was like, well, at least he's got more courage than you because he's putting his name next to his message.
Yeah. Oh, nice. See, that's the kind of wife you want. You know, somebody who's like, you want to go? You know, Elon needs one of those. Oh.
Got a couple.
He's got a few, yeah. Maybe even more in secret that we don't know about.
You mean those few who are suing him in court for child custody? Oh.
Yeah.
What's the like TLDR on that? I've been reading about that.
Grimes
Yeah.
has filed a complaint for custody of the children.
Really? That's a bummer.
That's the
sad, 'cause that's like
TLDR.
the one thing that makes him happy is
Well,
his children.
but does he actually have time?
He's with X on the weekends quite a bit.
That's
Well,
like the
I mean,
first
that's
time
what
I've
you
noticed
see.
that. Yeah.
That's what you see in social media. You know, you got to be like, I got a lot of crap going on too. I spend a fraction of the time that Lauren does with the kids.
Yeah.
Would I, like, if I were divorced from Lauren, would it be right for me to go to a court and go like, hey, I got an hour a day for my kids, or, you know, on average, maybe 2 hours a day. If I look at the whole week, maybe 14 hours or whatever. If I got 2 hours a day, I could take care of the kids. I got custody. That's not fair. You know, Lauren is full time with the children, especially with the twins coming in them. She's with them for 14 to 18 hours a day on average. It's not fair for somebody like, you know, with 1 to 2 hours a day to take custody of the children.
Yeah.
So this is nonsense.
I just mean from Elon's point, it's a bummer because in the biography,
Yeah.
he talks a lot about the joy that children bring him.
Oh,
And so
same.
to see that joy, like that little bit of joy that he can find from in the world get sucked away in a custody
It doesn't
battle,
get sucked away
stinks.
with custody, though.
He's not seeing them anyway at this. Like,
Oh,
I've been seeing the majority of the time. He's not seeing them anyway.
But think about it. You're like, and I don't know how much time Grimes has. Maybe Grimes doesn't have time either. I don't know. She's a
an alien.
performer. So I don't know. It depends what she's wearing that day. But yeah, look, I mean, I'll give you an example. So I'm at my house after we did like 3 videos and live streams this morning. Then we got to go film our Tesla ads because now we're gonna do some Tesla ads, and then we got this podcast. Right after this, we're hopping on a plane. Hopefully, one of my kids I'll be able to take with me. But if I don't, I had a long day. I'm not going to see much of them today. Last night, slept with Max, and when his crawled in his bunk bed, and we hung out together. But maybe I got to talk to him for like 20 minutes before I fell asleep, and we fell asleep together. This morning, he's playing in what'll be the little crib. Well, it's not the crib, the playpen for the twins. Him and Jack are in there wrestling, fighting. I get in there with my vest on, and we fight for like a good 8 minutes or whatever. It's like, you know, today might be one of those days where I only got 30 minutes with them. That's very low, right? And I got to up that up on the weekends. So, okay, now we're going to do a 4-hour day or 5-hour day or maybe even more. But the point is, can I have custody of these children full time and take care of all their needs full time like a mother could or somebody who has the time? No way. So I imagine Grimes has much more time than Elon does, especially since Elon can't even prepare his notes or his thoughts for an earnings call.
Yeah.
Which happens once a quarter.
that's like your only job. Well, it's not his only job, but it's like your only public job.
Yeah. It's
Anyway,
ridiculous.
Jim Jordan actually ended up surprising us today or yesterday. I've kind of lost track of time now, but he's given up running for the position, at least for the time being.
It looks like just now, while we were filming this, he's like, okay, I'm going to go back for it.
No way.
Yeah, this is like just now breaking. He's going to push forward with his speaker bid, but it's still looking more and more unrealistic.
We're
Rip.
not going to have a Speaker of the House for a long time. then.
Yeah. See, right now, 4 minutes ago, New York Times in reversal. Jordan says he'll push ahead with speaker bid, but it's exactly what you're saying. It's chaos. It's literally chaos that's happening right now, and it's everywhere. It's no surprise stocks are going down. Everything is freaking chaos.
Yeah.
Israel's chaos, which we're going to talk about. The House, Congress is chaos. They're always Congress. The debt is unsustainable. Jerome Powell's like, well, I don't know. This rates seem great where they are. He's not wrong. I mean, the economy is still very functional, even with rates as high as they are. He's not wrong. And he can't start cheering a victory here because if he does the, yay, I'm almost at the finish line and starts cheering, what happens? All of a sudden, inflation will unanchor, and then we're going to have real problems.
Yeah.
So it's a tough and very uncertain time.
Jim Jordan might just be a Democratic plant over there just to screw things up with the Republicans.
It's scary though because it's like then you go into the election and what's going to happen? Like is Biden going to run? Is he if Biden runs versus Trump? It's a coin toss right now. I want to look at the latest polls. But what do you guys think?
Do you think there's a chance we don't have a speaker until the election?
Oh my gosh.
Is there a chance of that?
I mean, there's a chance of anything, but that would be
Sure,
pretty
that's-
unprecedented, huh?
Yeah.
It's a long time without a speaker.
Yeah.
That's a long time. Yeah, I think that's a bit extreme, but I mean, stranger things have happened.
I mean, who after Jim Jordan? Who's next? Who wants to run?
That's the problem.
That's the thing. Is like,
No.
like we don't even have like a close competition. It's a one man, and we can't even pick one.
So right now we have a Grinnell Seltzer poll 40-40 in the general election, Biden v. Trump. We have Yahoo puts Biden at +1. These are from Thursday the 19th. On Wednesday, we had a CNBC that put Trump at +4. Economist YouGov put Biden at +1. NPR PBS puts Biden at +3. General Election Morning Consult puts Biden at +2. But as you can see, if you average this out here, you're basically at a coin toss.
That's crazy.
I have a feeling Trump's not going to win this election if he gets nominated as Republican.
Yeah, I think he will. Who else is going to?
Well, I mean, I think he'll get nominated for the Republican Party, but I don't think he's going to win against Biden if that's who he's going against. Because even last election, everyone, well, I can't say everyone, but most people who voted for Biden, it's not like they liked him. They just
Didn't want Trump.
Yeah. And so now you also have a lot of Republicans who don't want Trump. And I want to say Biden is fairly moderate, maybe even a bit conservative for a Democratic president.
He's a placeholder.
Elaborate on that.
Like, I don't know that he's actually there.
Oh, yeah.
Did you see him in his pajamas yesterday?
In the plane?
The plane? Yeah.
That was not good.
No.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. He's a placeholder. It's like anything but Trump placeholder.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's like, how can we just get away from Trump? Placeholder. Anything but Trump. Put a cone there.
The nice thing about Biden, I will say, it's crazy I'm saying this. There's not a lot of volatility with Biden. With Trump, there was a lot of volatility. Big button, my button works. Nuke, don't do this, don't do that.
Although
Biden's
you wonder,
we'll send you money. We'll send you money. We'll send you money.
I'm curious though. So it's an interesting point, but I'm curious. Trump was verbally chaos, but did that chaos theory prevent war? Because now look what happened under Biden. Biden's quiet and not verbally volatile. Disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, war in Ukraine, war in Israel, the worst we've seen. This is worse than Crimea. This is worse than the Israeli battles that we've seen over the past decades.
So you're saying mean tweets aren't that bad?
Well, remember what we say with chaos theory. It's the person who creates the chaos has the control. And so it's like a legal theory somebody told me once. If you create chaos for the other side, the opposing side, you have control because you get to pick up the pieces. I think Trump created so much chaos that people hated him, but in that chaos he actually created peace, whereas Biden isn't creating verbal chaos and has no control as a result. Now everybody else is creating the chaos.
Very interesting.
It's China, it's Putin, whatever.
Yeah,
That's interesting. I'll
now
think about
Putin's
that.
creating. Putin's almost creating the chaos now.
And guess who it gives control to? Putin.
Yep, he has the
The
control.
creator of the chaos usually has the control.
Very interesting.
Speaking of Trump, former attorney of his pleads guilty.
Sidney Powell.
Sidney Powell, she pleads guilty. This was in the election, the Georgia, everything's a scam. So there's
We got to find 12,000 votes.
Yep, and they went in and they got a bunch of the information from the voting, and they were trying to basically prove that there was some kind of fraud with the votes or whatever. But anyway, a day before her trial was set to start, she ended up pleading guilty for it. She admitted that it was a breach of election systems and a couple of other things. And this was from 2021 after the last election when she and a bunch of GOP officials, got a bunch of the data and were basically going through people's personal information trying to prove that it was rigged, which if I'm not mistaken, the only mild election fraud that actually happened was all things like this, like Republicans being scared of election fraud and then going in and doing it before the Democrats could do it.
Oh, interesting.
In a lot of the
I
smaller
didn't know
counties, the little amount of fraud that was found was just like the hand votes.
Any amount of fraud is too much fraud. But yeah, I mean, you see, like, I think a big thing in Georgia was the comparing names, and they're like, hey, these people are dead. And it's like, well, there's also another person named, let's just say, Jim Jordan. Oh, this says he's dead. Well, no, that's a different Jim Jordan than this Jim. It was stuff like that. It was, yeah. It didn't seem, I mean,
it wasn't a conspiracy like some like crazy global.
At least from what we're told from all the investigations, there wasn't enough fraud found to justify any change of outcome in Georgia. What's really interesting, though, is what she got away with. Her fine. It's actually not that bad. I see here you have written $9,000 in restitution of fines. I wanted to see if she had to do any time, and she is serving 6 years of probation and has to write an apology letter. That's it.
That's what the prosecutors are recommending, is 6 years of probation.
That's not bad.
Nope.
Like, compared to the potential of you going through a trial and then losing, It's not bad. 6 years of probation. Who cares? You're free.
Well, she also has to write an apology letter to the people of Georgia.
And what does it mean she'll be required to testify at future trials? Like, will this affect Trump's trials ongoing right now?
Yeah, they will Carolyn Ellison her.
Yeah.
We want you to say this. And that's scary.
That's a bigger weapon than locking her away.
Correct.
That's
the weapon.
Yeah.
That's how you set up the prosecution, because now you go, we need you to say this. She's going to look at it and go, I can't say that about Trump. Well,
Take her away.
maybe we can't do this deal then. Maybe we need to go to the judge and say you're not abiding by what you agreed to. That pressure is they're using her as a tool to get Trump.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Agreed.
Crazy.
Agreed. All right.
So, yeah.
I mean, we should move on because we're running out of time. Y'all got a flight to catch.
Right before we go to Israel, what's happening November 1st?
November 1st, HouseHack deadline. We are about to hop on a plane. Remember, I'm paying for this plane. And we are exploring real estate. We're getting deals for real estate. We're doing a great job. The entire HouseHack team is super excited for all the support we're getting. We do have a deadline November 1st. Invest in HouseHack by going to househack.com. You can ACH, debit card, credit card, whatever's easier for you, wire. Email us if you have questions at ir@househack.com. But do read the offering circular. Investing in startups obviously is risky, but learn more at househack.com. We're raising at a 1-to-1 valuation, which is pretty awesome.
Cool.
All right. Well, Sleepy Joe went to Israel.
Yeah.
Why do we have these old politicians, man? This is crazy. Anyway, I got some quotes from some things that he said, and he says, I caution this, while you feel the rage, don't be consumed by it. After 9/11, we were enraged in the United States, and while we sought justice and got justice, we also made mistakes.
That's actually a good quote, because a lot of, I was thinking, we talked about this another time, what if we got invaded the way Israel did by Hamas? Well, we would probably respond the way Israel is. We were like, that's it, we're going to destroy you. But that turned into Operation Iraqi Freedom, which ended up being a multi-decade long mistake, right? So, yes, that's actually a very good line by Biden.
It seemed to...
His team.
The line that Biden read from his card.
That's good.
It seemed to resonate with Israel because apparently the response is they are going to be allowing for humanitarian aid to pass into Gaza through Egypt now.
Yeah, they made a deal with Egypt, which is... How much money are we paying?
I wouldn't be surprised. But there was basically the quote from the Israeli government is, in light of President Biden's demand, Israel will not thwart humanitarian aid from Egypt as long as it's only food, water, and medicine for the civilian population in the southern Gaza Strip or the ones moving there, and as long as these supplies do not reach Hamas. Any supplies that reach Hamas will be thwarted.
What are these 223 rounds in the food? How did these get here?
I thought these were Oreos. These are bullets.
How'd these warheads get in the medicine cabinet?
Probably, honestly.
Peanut butter covered 566 or 556. Anyway, so the border's going to need some repair. The roads are going to need some repair, but the estimate is they're expecting by Friday of this week that they're going to be able to get some humanitarian aid in there.
Yeah.
Ultimately, though, Biden still stands with Israel. He did mention that in the wake of Hamas's appalling terrorist assault, brutal, inhumane, almost beyond belief what they did, this cabinet came together and is standing strong, standing united, and I want you to know you are not alone. And then he also added, you're not alone, as I emphasized earlier. We will continue to have Israel's back as you work to defend your people. We'll continue to work with you and partners across the region to prevent more tragedy to innocent civilians.
Yeah, and that is exactly why we are in the Middle East and why we have our warship stationed there. There's actually now a piece that's actually just now being covered by Zero Hedge. And they're usually pretty bearish, but very interesting here. Apparently, just now, a U.S. official says missiles were launched from Iranian-backed Houthi militants. The Houthis are in Yemen, by the way. And this is you've got Hezbollah in Lebanon. You've got Hamas in the Gaza Strip and potentially the West Bank. And now you've got the Houthis in Yemen. Apparently, missiles were intercepted by a U.S. Navy vessel. This means now the United States is shooting down missiles.
I have an update to add
Please,
to that.
please.
In Iraq and Syria, since Wednesday, we have shot down drones that have tried to attack our U.S. troops.
Bases, I think, something like that, huh?
Yeah. So we have 2,500 troops in Iraq, and we have 900 troops in Syria. And since Wednesday, we have thwarted the efforts to shoot down 3 unmanned aerial systems targeting troops in Iraq early Wednesday, and they won't give us the number for the ones in Syria.
Yeah.
Which it's concerning. And with that piece that we read, it wasn't Bill Ackman. Was it Bill Ackman? No, it was, who was the other guy? It might have been Bill Ackman, the World War III.
Ray Dalio.
Ray Dalio.
Yeah.
He said, I didn't believe it, but this hot water war was going to start bleeding out.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, we've been, the United States, since we pulled out of Afghanistan, has been attacked in the Middle East somewhere around 80 times before this. And we've only responded about
3 times. So we have like a low response rate to being attacked. Like we know we're there, they know we're there. We get attacked, we shoot the stuff down. This does happen regularly. So there are 2 potentials here. One is that now it's happening more often, it could be an and or. It's not only being covered more, but it's potentially, well, I don't remember what I said first, but it's either happening more often or it's getting covered more or both.
Yeah.
To be clear. So it could be happening more or we're covering it more or both. But this isn't highly uncommon. So I'm not like looking at this going, oh my gosh, now the U.S. is getting attacked. We kind of always have been. Now it's just getting the coverage. The question is it happening more? Is this going to keep escalating? And that's how you get to World War III. Is just more of this kind. Like you get a real strike that hits an American base, and all of a sudden it's like 50 Americans are dead.
Well, the United States has to be involved.
Well, the U.S. has to respond because otherwise people are going to be like, Congress and White House, what are you doing? This is ridiculous. Either pull us out or respond. And that's how things escalate. So Ray Dalio's not wrong.
That was an interesting piece that has been more prophetic than I thought it would be.
Well, speaking of these attacks and reporting, I do want to cover some updates on the hospital attack that
Yes,
happened
let's
in
hear
Gaza.
that.
So again, disclaimer, there's fog of war, fog of information. Anything you read could be false. There's a lot of propaganda happening right now. Don't believe everything you read on the internet. We might not know till after the war. We might never know. But NBC did consult 4 military and munitions experts on the rocket that hit, whether or not this is like an Israeli missile or what the case is or where it could have possibly come from. So one of them had entirely agreed with Biden, which his stance was like Hamas did this.
Right.
3 of them agreed that although it might not be from Hamas, the blast almost certainly did not come from Israel. Mm-hmm. And then give me a second to pull this up on the screen.
Yeah, you're pulling this up. I'll add a little bit of context to it. There was a lot of confusion because the night that it was night when the hospital was blown up, but then when the sun rose, it showed a parking lot.
Right. Okay, so I could clarify that. So what happened is the buildings didn't actually sustain damage. The parking lot was incinerated. And you had hundreds of people in that parking lot. And people were like, why would people be in a parking lot? Well, you're in a war zone. And this war zone does not have power, does not have electricity. So what happens in a war zone when there's no power and electricity? Well, you go where there's power and electricity. Where's power, electricity, food, working restrooms? Hospitals. So people literally camp out in the parking lot just to have basic function, an ability to cook something, power, toilet. You got to poop and pee somewhere. Like, you have to be able to function. And if you can't function anywhere else, you go to a hospital where you can actually function. So people literally, I mean, think about it like, I hate to say it because it's not this at all, but think about it like, you go to the beach, everybody puts their towels out and their umbrella out, and you kind of just sit there and chill and relax. Think about it like that in a parking lot.
In a war.
And in the middle of a war. Yeah, and then you get hit by a bomb. It's terrible.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. That's a great point.
Yeah,
but
the
hospitals are at capacity anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So this is an incendiary weapon that was used. It wasn't designed, if it was targeted on us, it wasn't designed to destroy the building. It was designed to kill the people, and that's what it did. Now the question is, was that a total fluke that this rocket that wasn't designed to destroy a building just happened to incinerate 500 people in the one place where the 500 people are sitting in the parking lot, as opposed to the parking lot anywhere else? I don't know.
It's so one-sided on Twitter because it's like that picture that you had up.
What was
there.
that picture? Yeah, maybe explain this picture.
That picture, because on Twitter, they just like zoomed into the parking lot and all you see is the cars burned and you're like, oh, like these people just blew up a parking lot. Like it's no big deal. The media react. But literally like 30 yards away is the hospital.
The left side,
they cropped out of
the left side here is showing the video that went viral of the rockets, and it's showing you, of the rocket strike, and it's showing you that where the camera was positioned, where it's angled, and where the crater actually hit, just to give you a perspective where this relates to the video.
Yeah.
And then in the second one, it shows you where that crater is, where the actual hospital is there on the right side, and then destroyed fencing, because if you remember that video, there was kind of fencing in the foreground, so that's just to give you context of where it was.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Crazy.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Either way, this is the stuff that happens in war. Whether it doesn't, I mean, like, no matter where it came from, more of this will happen the longer the war goes on.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, I believe we just have breaking news right now. Do you want to take it away, Mikey?
Please. Yeah.
Mr. Ravi over here.
Yeah, speaking of the RAV4 today, and we were talking Tesla adopted a new charging standard. They're doing the Tesla method.
Toyota.
Or Toyota. I'm sorry, Toyota. Yeah.
Just
Toyota
now?
Just 4 minutes ago, adopted the Tesla charging
They're
standard.
doing North American charging standard.
Toyota and Lexus customers will have access to more than 12,000 charging stations across North America.
BMW recently did it. I think Volkswagen and who else is left?
I saw a graph of it, of all the companies that haven't done it. There's still like a large amount of companies.
They'll
that
all
haven't done
transfer
that.
over.
Eventually.
Stellantis
They'll all come over.
maybe and Volkswagen.
Yeah, they'll all transfer over.
Yeah.
We got to catch a flight. Thank you so much for watching this. Keep in mind that this video is perspective. It is not information that is designed to help you make an absolute decision in a security. Any products we mention or stocks we mention, we're probably long. We could be long on. I'm long on, or we could be paid for mentioning those products, like StreamYard. Go to metkevin.com/StreamYard to learn more about professional streaming software. Also, keep in mind that even though I am a licensed financial advisor, becoming a licensed stockbroker, and I'm a licensed real estate broker, none of this is personalized advice to you. So make up your own decisions. Very, very important. Thank you so much, guys. Anything else?
Subscribe.
There we go.
This talk.
Road to 2 million, baby.
Thanks so much for watching.